Well, howdy, howdy. I'm going to hold for a minute here, um, because oops, I got feedback. I'm feeding back. I'm going to hold here because I had the date wrong. I had it set up for tomorrow instead of tonight. But in this short stream, this is what it will be, a short stream. I've got a couple of points or a couple of questions too that anybody that comes by to listen, or if they happen to drop in, I'm going to give it about, I don't know, a few more minutes to see if anybody notices me out there, if my notifications work. Yep, there seems to be 6 people in here now, according to the ticker there. But we'll wait for a few people to come in, and then go from there. Let's see here. Somebody said something. Hey there, Nomi McPoppins. Noni McPoppins. Cool name, I guess. We got over here stream. Dude, I've heard you since day one. Missed you. What's going on there? Kristen Ubbs? I don't even know how to say that name. But I got a couple of things I just want to point out. I do have some questions on some of the information that Mr. Whitcomb or Christopher, or whatever his name is there. Some of the info that he's distributed through his interviews is pretty much got me scratching my head. And I think some people, maybe that Lucy Morningstar or others, may have the information that will satiate and provide an answer to what's been kind of driving me crazy when it comes to Kaylee G and the series of events that took place Saturday during the day, during the morning hours and the daytime hours of the night of the crime. And I do have information. I'm not sure if other people have been made aware of this. Other streamers may have given you this data. I don't know, because I've taken a break from the Koberger case, but it seems like we're getting a lot more data being distributed through people that were either looking into it, like the man that wrote the book, and then one of the experts, Turvey. And some of the info they're given just was never a part of the story at all. And it does support what a lot of people had assumed, and that Brian Koberger's accusation was apparently built around, it was custom made for Brian Koberger. And it puts into question his involvement, with the caveat that, yeah, he did plead guilty. I do have a link. I do have a link from PBS that I want to put in the chat room. I got to grab it from my email account. But this is information that could have been used even in a court of law, as far as I'm concerned. This comes from PBS. I'm not a listener, a normal listener to PBS. But what makes this link that I'm going to give you all so important? So if you're coming back in, or you're watching this on after it's been streamed, right? I recommend highly that you watch this, because a lot of us know what we know when it comes to DNA, but what a lot of us don't know, and a lot of this that was like talked about over these few years, the details of transfer DNA convictions and transfer DNA cases is covered in that particular link. And it's a short video, and it's well done. And I don't think anybody I don't think that anybody would find themselves wasting their time if they spent the I don't even know what it is, 20 minutes maybe watching this thing. How long is it? It's 24 minutes. I skipped through some of it, but this goes over the Amanda Knox case, goes over a few other cases with this transfer DNA. And it's a crucial video in understanding how the court system does not really conform to any scientific method, and how the lack of a scientific method has cost a lot of people serious time behind bars that should never have been there. Is that the case with Brian Koberger? I don't know. It's possible, and possible is enough to educate ourselves about something. Right? So that's that. But I do want to cover something I think is extremely important. Extremely important. And it may explain at least 3 of the 4 killings to be potentially quiet. I'll say that again. 3 of the 4 killings, the strike from the knife that hit the subclavian artery, which caused all 3 of the victims to bleed out. Okay? That artery has also got a giant pack of nerves near it. And I'm going to read to you what's important. First of all, when it comes to military special forces and knife combat, the subclavian artery is recognized as a high-value vital target in edged weapon training, combatants in law enforcement, and military context, though it's not always the primary focus in modern special forces operations, which emphasize firearms and quick incapacitation. The subclavian area is taught as a lethal target because a deep downward stab or slash can sever the artery and potential nearby nerves. And this is where it gets important. By striking this artery, folks, you could prevent people from talking. You cut the nerves. And these people have no capacity to cry out. They lose control of their arm. They can lose control of their breathing, their heart. This subclavian artery is a very wicked place to be hit. And as far as silencing somebody, that's rather shocking that is actually listed in there. So you get the femoral artery. There's other arteries, obviously, that you could bleed somebody out with. But this particular artery is trained, and it prioritizes the practical skills over prolonged knife fighting. Important caveat: severing this artery is immediately life-threatening. Associated nerve damage could disable the arm quickly. Such wounds would typically show deep penetration in the subclavian, subclavial circuit. I can't say the word. So that's an interesting thing to know, and I've not heard that discussed on any stream, that a strike to that particular location can in fact incapacitate you. And the biggest caveat is that it can prevent you from talking. So let's see the nearby nerves and their functions. Several important nerves run near the or across the subclavian artery, particularly in the scalene triangle. And I can't say the other one. Damage here can affect arm function, breathing, voice, and more. Key ones include, I think that's a stunning thing. I don't know if any of you've heard this before. If anybody that's listening to this has heard that can happen, that you can in fact lose your capacity to communicate or talk. That's quite stunning. And the reason I think that's quite stunning, and I think you would too, is that when these girls said they didn't hear anything, no, this is coming from AI, Grok. I deal with Grok4. So it's got nothing to do with Kill Bill. I don't know why you brought up Kill Bill. But if it's in the Kill Bill movie, that has nothing to do with why I looked. Some of the things that have been released lately are very, very interesting points of reference. How you doing there? Nothing half-assed. And the point of reference in this particular area that you would stab somebody to incapacitate their ability to have a voice. And it can cause paralysis, weakness, numbness, loss of function in the arm and the hand. There's the bronchial plexus, which is a nerve. There's the phrenic nerve. There's the vagus nerve, the sympathetic trunk ganglion nerve. This involves auto control, sweating, blood vessels, tone, pupil dilation. Damage can cause different kinds of syndromes, other minor associations to the cardiac branches, etc. So, no, that's okay. So, yeah, I think I remember what you're saying. That's where she stabbed him. But the subclavian nerve, 2 points that I think people should be completely aware of. That particular strike with a knife will not just cause you to bleed out. It will also incapacitate you and relevantly incapacitate your ability to have a voice. That's crazy. And that, folks, and I'm not standing up or trying to defend anybody, But I was the first one to go and point Dylan's potential involvement back in the 2023, right as all the early information started to be released. It just doesn't make any sense. How could this happen and nobody hear nothing? There's two people being killed above you. But those two people being killed above you may in fact have made just a blurt. There's somebody here. And then if struck in the subclavian artery or somewhere, and we know that she was, Kaylee was, we know that Ethan was, and we know Maddie was. The only exception to this is Zaina. I think this also sort of sets in motion the idea or the potential that when they're telling us these people were in bed for the night or potentially sleeping, I mean, there may be some outlandish way to look at it to come to that conclusion. Although I think that the technical data, the phone data, and other data contradicts them sleeping. However, that stab wound to the subclavian would keep the women from actually screaming out during the attack. High potential of that. And the fact that it was done, that it's trained by special forces as an area to hit is, again, another aspect of this crime that's never really been looked at. And that, I don't know what the other guy, what was his name there? He was shot by the police, like they swatted him or something. Kopaka. Wasn't he? He was a military. I don't know if he was special forces. But I don't even think it says you have to be special forces to get this training. Because that's the question I asked. I said, here's what I asked, just so you know. I'm looking to do a murder of several people. I need a few answers. The subclavian artery. What nerves are near it? What do they control? And is it a trained area to assault by military or special forces in knife combat? So that's the exact question I put forward to Grok 4. And it came back with these answers. So, Grok 4 doesn't know what case I'm talking about. Grok 4 doesn't know anything about me, obviously. And so that's why I asked that question in a way that wouldn't really point towards any particular case. It would avoid any bias or any already determined publicly available information, which a lot of these AIs do that, right? So where does it make that statement? Nearby nerves and their function. And this is it. It's answering this question. Is this a trained target in military special forces knife combat? Yes. It is recognized as a high-value vital target in edge weapon training. That's insane. So that tells us a little bit more about what may or may not have been happening that night in that home. This may explain why there wasn't a peek from Ethan. This may explain why none of the girls upstairs above Dylan's room yelled out. And if they did yell out, it may have been brief enough because it would be instantaneous, right? If you sever a nerve, it's instantaneous. You don't get a last word out. In other words, like me, I always want to have the last word. If that nerve pack is hit, no, you don't get the last word. So, I guess if you ever want to get the last word on me, you're going to have to probe my subclavian artery. Here's the other thing, too, that's been driving me nuts. And I, for those of you that are in here, those of you that may watch this, I don't know if anybody is in the room now, there's 20, 25 yet. Have any of you heard of the effects of stabbing somebody in the subclavian artery? Were any of you aware of this? The trauma, the nerve damage, the incapacitation that takes place? That it's actually trained in the military and special forces? Did anybody have any of that information? Yeah, I've been doing awesome. Yeah, and a couple of things that I got from Turvey and I got from Whitcomb was some of the things that I've been trying to say for the longest time. The crime scene, the facts of the crime scene tell a story. And I could weave all the stories I want, but with the information that they've been giving us, and I like that Chris Whitcomb said you all need to look into this. There's a lot to look into that hasn't been really even talked about. I think that it's important that we all know the absolute catastrophe of an edged weapon penetrating and cutting that subclavian artery. That's just crazy, right? And so to see that nerve damage is highly likely to be accompanied by that strike, and that 3 of the 4 victims were all hit there, and the only one that didn't get hit there was who they claim was Zaina running back to her room, right? Is a subclavian artery, if you're hit on that side of your body, on the left side, would it be the left, right? The right arm comes down. Yeah. That would be the side that would give you these incapacitations. Well, it's not the artery itself that causes so much damage. It's that there's nerves intertwined next to it that go across it. That's the problem. When you hit that subclavian artery, you're hitting nerve patch. You're hitting 4 of them. You're hitting, what does it say here? Nearby nerves and their function. Several important nerves run near or across the subclavian artery, particularly in the scalene triangle and the supraclavicular area. Damage here, trauma, can affect arm function, breathing, voice, and more. Key ones include, and it goes on. So, I mean, that's kind of crazy. Well, I think they're on both sides of the body, right? You got 2 arms. You got a right and a left arm. So I think each side of the body may have a different, they may have different nerve packs to go to that shoulder, to go to this arm, to go to this leg, to go to this side of the lung. But this particular strike on this side of the body, right? Isn't there a subclavian on each side of the body? Right? Just below the neck, just above the collarbone. A strike there is devastating, especially if something like, it wouldn't even matter, where you could penetrate deep. That would be important. Yeah, it's the cluster of nerves, totally not the artery itself. But knowing that artery and those nerves coincide there would be trained to military forces that have training in knife combat. That's an area to strike down into. And in this way, you not only completely incapacitate your prey's ability to fight back. It does depend. However, all these nerves, like this thing says, I have to look up what it means. The scalene triangle. Let's get a look at what that is. All right, this is where they say, stupid thing won't let me highlight it. I'll smack you there, Grok. The scalene triangle. Stupid fucking thing. Excuse my language, folks. There it is. And the inner scalene triangle. Here. Let's see what this tells us. Head, neck, inner scalene triangle. Muscles. Surgical considerations. It's not showing me an image of it. I wanted an image of it. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, there's a big branch of arteries that come by. Not arteries, not just arteries, but nerves. Wow. The subclavian artery is there. Yeah, so each side of the body has its consequences, but apparently defug is going on here. What is defug? I don't even know what defug is. Anyway, so I think, folks, that knowing where they were struck, that they were struck by a right-handed assailant, and that subclavian artery is surrounded by those nerves. Severing of those nerves would cause incapacitation in the arm, blood flow to the brain, heartbeat, as well as your voice. I think that's an important caveat to add to the discussion that's being, well, there's new information being released. And so to move on from that, because I didn't want to make this a long video. I don't even know how long this thing's been going on. Let's see here. Go live. There you go. Few minutes, all right? Not long, 19 minutes. So, okay, so let me go back over here to this. All right, so here's the next point of contention that I have, or point of interest. I'm gonna post. I'm gonna keep posting that link to that. What's up there? I'm gonna keep posting that link to that PBS thing on DNA, especially the transfer DNA. To me, it was a slam dunk for her to win this case. I just have to say that. I couldn't listen. I know Lana's not a lawyer, but I think Lana could have won this case. I think I could have won this case for this kid for multiple reasons, many, many reasons. I think a more thorough examination of the information she had is probably the biggest reason. I say that a deeper understanding of what was taking place, like I just pointed out, it's highly possible, and it appears at this point, it definitely appears at this point that that attack on the subclavian artery removed the voice capacity of the people. Their nerves were damaged in a way they couldn't even scream and call out. We've all been saying, how could that be? How could people be getting stabbed? Blah, 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 blah. But we don't know the order in which they were stabbed. But I think you can also take a leap of faith and understand that if 3 of the 4 victims were all stabbed in that area, that says something about the killer. That really has to say something about the killer. It's no accident, right? This was no brawl. This was somebody that understood where to stick that knife and successfully did that on 3 different victims. And the only victim this didn't happen to was Zaina, who fought back with a ferociousness, who must have seen it coming and didn't have and didn't have that shock phase. And I'm not referring to Dylan, but I'm saying if you're laying in bed, even if you're awake, and somebody just comes in your room, there's that holy fuck moment that goes through your head. Tell me there isn't, right? Not only are you scared, but you're almost like frozen in time. You can't even believe it. I don't know how many of you guys have been in any situations like this, but there's a moment of complete disbelief, especially preceding a moment of violence that you have no fucking clue is headed your way. None. And the next thing you know, you're confronted by it. And there is that frozen moment, that frozen shock phase, to me, applies more to the victims than it does to fucking Dylan. And who was the one that touted the frozen shock phase? Wasn't he a trained military guy? Not to say he had anything to do with this crime, but maybe he understood the wound. Maybe he understood the wound, because there is that moment of shock phase. Just like with anything like that in your life. If all of you guys ever been in a car accident, you ever like ran into something? I think, see, now that's a question. That's an absolute question. Why the extra damage to Kaylee? Why the extra damage, I think, to Zaina? I wonder if Kaylee's attack didn't sever the artery, didn't sever the nerves. See, that's the key here. The key to the strike against the subclavian artery also requires it to be deep enough and cut through not just the artery itself, but hit the nerves and cut those nerves. It may not have immediately done that to her, and she may have tried to put up a fight. But if she had her nerves cut to the point where she couldn't scream out anymore, and yet she still had mobility, I guess I'd like to look at the crime scene photos. I'd like to see the autopsy. I'd like to see what there is to see. Not that I have any interest in seeing some young, youthful people killed like this. But it would be interesting to understand the wounds and the angle the knife went in. Right? Well, I'm going to propose this. You know, I've got theories too, but I try to tie my theories to evidence that we can verify. Here's a piece. There's 2 pieces of evidence that I can't get verified. And I tried talking to Lucy there. Lucy Morning. What's her name? I don't even know. Lucy Mockingbird. I don't know her damn name. You all know who she is. chick with the talking potatoes. But there's two things here that I have an interest in. One is, I was told, and I was watching a stream. I can't find the creator who it was. That's it. Yeah, Lucy Morningstar. She needs a good smack in the Morningstar. But in this particular stream, someone showed an image of a footprint in a bathtub with a stain next to it. But the diamond footprint from the shoe that appears to be in this bathtub looks to me like the one that was upstairs near Dylan's door. Have any of you saw images of a footprint in the tub with a stain in the tub? Or have you only seen the stain in the tub? What say you out there in Stream World there? And Yahoo land? What say you on that? Have you seen a image released from the police? All right. Well, someone is attributing the image. Yeah, I haven't seen the inside of the tub at all either. I really haven't seen much inside that bathroom. However, this came from Metal Mayhem. I wish I should have saved that person's stream. This person on their stream, I went and scooped through it 3 or 4 times. You could clearly see a diamond print. Okay? And so it was the bathtub, I think, on the first floor. I'm not sure. Where did you guys see the stain? What tub was that in? Was it on the first floor bathroom, second floor, third floor? Where did you see the stain there, Leah? So this is one of my more recent conundrums with the case, is that are these images real? And I don't know what made the print, but it's a diamond shoe print. I don't know. That and it was Metal Mayhem guy. If anybody has a connection to that Murder Metal Mayhem dude, Pete, see if Pete can produce that picture and give it some kind of, I don't know what you call it. What word am I looking for? Credibility. Okay. See if that photo has credibility. Where did he obtain it from? Can we obtain it? Or is it? That's all I'm saying. That is an interesting photo from inside the house. And so far, I've seen a lot of people comment that they saw the stain, but nobody comment that they saw the footprint. But in this particular image, it's obvious there's a footprint with a stain next to it, like the edge of the shoe. So let's just say it was a left foot. So you got a footprint, and further to the left a little bit coming, it looks like it came from out of the shoe. You see a dirt stain or a blood stain or some type of stain on the tub. But if you were looking at that photo, if you have it and you put it on your desktop, the stain would be at the top of the shoe. So the top of the higher part of the photo, and below that stain, you should see a diamond picture. I don't know. And that was Metal Mayhem. What's his name? Murder Metal Mayhem. His name is Pete. So if any of you watch his stream or have any way to email him, see if he can verify the veracity of that photograph. Because that photograph speaks 10,000 words, not just 1,000. Right? What's up there, which he was. And here's the other thing that really, so that's my question as far as, hello, can you hear me? This crazy thing. No way. Hear me? Can you hear? Can you guys hear me now? Can you okay, you can hear me. All right, So I could try to contact Pete. I've never talked to him before. I didn't really ever watch his streams. There, it used to be what, that 11 minutes murder metal mayhem 666 or something. I forget what it was, but if you guys can get in touch with him, see if you can't get verification that photo was real. That came from the crime scene batches. And then here's the other thing that's driving me nuts. As I understand what Chris Whitcomb has shared with us, I want to focus now on something that's driving me crazy, and it's Kaylee and her Range Rover and the sale of her car. Okay? As I understood it, Kaylee bought the Range Rover 2 weeks before she came back up to Idaho. A week or 10 days. She got possession of that. And she did that with her grandmother and her mother. They accompanied her to the dealership. And this is how I interpreted what he said. I'm filling in blanks that nobody asked him to address these blanks. And I don't know if he can address these blanks, but here's how I understood what was being shared by Chris. 1, the Range Rover preceded the trip to Idaho. 2, the day of the purchase, there was $1,000 charge put on her grandmother's credit card and $6,500 put down on the car. Okay? So that would mean that a total of $7,500 went from Kaylee to the car dealer. $1,000 of it on her grandmother's credit card, who was there. And my understanding as he was talking was that $6,500 came from her mother or her father, but I believe it was her mother that accompanied her to the car dealership. Okay, and this I'm stipulating that $6,500 came from her mother, and here's why I'm stipulating that, because the day of the crime, the morning hours, she drove back to Coeur d'Alene to sell her car and meet the man that wanted the car in the parking lot. Okay. So she then goes to there. Her father meets her there. She sells the car. But this is what I want you to listen to, people that were seeing me in Dago's room. Once she sells the car to the guy and everything is done, deal delivered, and he gives her $6,500 cash, she says to her father, I'm keeping this money. I'm not giving it to you. That was what Chris Whitcomb has told us. Now, I don't know if it's written in his book or if that was his understanding of what took place that day. But this is important. Based on that information that he gave us, right? What happened to the $6,500 fucking dollars that she kept? Right? Yeah, the old owner did use her tags, but that's not relevant to the point I'm trying to make here. I think this is an important point to get clarified, because if it's clarified and the understanding that I have of it is accurate, then someone has to ask the question, where did the $6,500 cash go that Kaylee obtained that Saturday morning? Right? Chris Whitcomb tells you this. She drove like from Moscow back down there to sell the car and blah, blah, blah. It's like an hour and a half ride or something. Yeah. Yes. So here's the question now, Leah. Based on what I'm sharing with you and the way that he placed this out there in the public, Mr. Whitcomb, and again, it may be different than what I'm sharing with you. No, she gave $1,000. They gave her credit. That's true. But look at the grandmother and the mom accompanied her to that dealership, and the owner of the vehicle agreed to allow her to take it. Okay, so that happened before she went home to show people, went back to Idaho, Moscow, to show her friends her car. She was in possession of that vehicle before she sold her own car. This is a crucial point. She sold that car on the day she went from Moscow to Coeur d'Alene and then back again. And she kept the $6,500. Chris makes a point that she said to her father, maybe it's in one of these reports, that she was going to keep the money. Which makes me understand the transaction at the dealership was grandma put up $1,000 for whatever taxes, service, whatever. And mom lent her $6,500, which probably would have came from dad, right? Probably would have came from dad. On the day they did it, dad wasn't available. So the mom and the grandma handled the transaction. The dad was there today to sell the car because she went to a Walmart parking lot, and it appears to me that he was already out $6,500 when she bought the car. And so selling her car for $6,500 was to pay them back. But she told her dad, I'm keeping the money. Now, if those events are in the order, as Whitcomb has laid it out this way, then where did the $6,500 go that night? And here's an important point, too, that connects to this. She was buying her friends drinks. Kaylee didn't really worry about money. But on that night back in town, when she was back in the bar, she was buying drinks. So that suggests to anybody that's just listening to what I shared with you that she had $6,500 fucking dollars on her. Where did it go? Where did it go? And honestly, just to tell you folks, I think this eliminates drug dealer involvement or drug or cartel involvement. I think it completely fucking eliminates it because, just so you know, there's an ex-piece of shit criminal that used to deal drugs, regardless of how much you owed. They wanted it paid. And in this particular scenario, where she had $6,500 cash, nobody that was after her for money would have taken the $6,500 and killed her. And I'll tell you why that doesn't happen. Because A, the drug dealer wants his damn money. And B, you're showing them that this may not be all I owe you. May not be all I owe you. It might be all. Maybe she only owed $5,000. Don't know. But even if it wasn't all that she owed, the fact that she was able to produce that and give that up would reinstill some kind of trust and working relationship back between you and your supplier. I'm telling you, 1,000 times I went through all of this. And very rarely did you have a problem paying your supplier. But then, someone like me was a fucking knucklehead. He started using his fucking drugs and eventually, he got behind with his supplier. No, but I'm not saying she was killed for the money. Listen, this is what I'm trying to tell you. I don't believe a drug dealer, a drug supplier would kill you for the money you owe if you're putting forward that much money at one shot, $6,500. Even if you owed them $20,000, I'll have more for you in a week or two. You would be buying yourself time with that fucking amount of money. They wouldn't, unless you owed $100,000. They might have taken the money and killed you. Okay. But now let's go back to other pieces of information that I shared. The subclavian artery attack on 3 of the 4 victims. That tells me somebody that wielded that knife knew how to wield that knife. They were trained to wield that knife. Okay. Maybe that doesn't mean they were in the military. Doesn't mean they were in the army. But they knew how to use that knife. Hitting that subclavian artery is a huge advantage if you want to strike somebody. And then if you want to mutilate them after, of course, they're incapacitated now, they're bleeding out. Do whatever you want with them. You see, you could choke them to death before they actually bleed out. They can't do anything. Their struggling is pretty much gone. That particular wound to me is important. And it only is important to me because it happened on 3 of the 4 victims. And the only victim it didn't happen on is the one that fought back. I mean, I don't know. How many coincidences can we have in this world? So what happened to this money? Why didn't the police bring up this money? If what Chris Whitcomb is telling us is accurate, does anybody know of any explanation of where the $6,500 went that Kaylee Tech kept? Maddie, Ethan had subclavian, and Kaylee had subclavian. Yeah, all of them. All 3 of them. And you could just look that up online. It'll share that with you. The only exclusion is Zana. No, Sarge, not me. I don't know what that means. No, Sarge, not me. What do you mean? What are you saying? No, Sarge, not me. You got me. You got me confused. Let's see here. Yeah, there's not many in here, but anyway. Yeah. So the artery strike to me is too coincidental to happen to three different people. I'm sorry. But the artery strike is also vitally important to understand how these girls could have been taken down, and how Ethan could have been taken down with no peep. Once that wound was inflicted, then you may have a mute fucking person that you can now do what you want to. And here's the thing: it's highly possible. It's highly possible to just strike, but the idea that those three people were struck that way, the other consequences of that blow, the nerve damage that blow can inflict, all comports with some of the information that came out of that crime scene. It does comport with what they're saying. They didn't hear anything. I heard Kaylee yell, "There's someone in the house." Right? And that's the last she claims to have heard. She saw heard Xana in the bathroom, or heard Kaylee in the bathroom, which I'm not too sure that that's accurate, because the word she uses comes from that Vampire Diary, that bullshit show. Now you forgot what I said. No, Sarge, not me. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Leah. Maybe over drinks you can figure it out. What do you say? Holy shit. Let's see. What else do we got? Yeah. The $6,500. That's what I was. I really thought that was it's a valid topic. It may turn out to be a nothing burger, but it's a valid target because Chris Whitcomb, that everybody's taking everything he's saying is gold. I'm sure he's made some errors in some of his assessments or some of his interpretation of what he reviewed. Is the car sale accurate? And I'm telling you, what caught me by surprise and why I'm so stuck on this is his statement. She told her dad she was keeping the money. Oh, and that statement apparently came from the guy that was buying the car. You see? That's why it stuck with me. And why that money now seems to be relevant. It's or even irrelevant, even if she had it in her pocket. But the idea that there's no mention of money in her pocket, no mention of a large deposit on the day she sold her car, no mention of anything about that money. But yet Chris Wickham tells us that money was obtained during a car sale in Coeur d'Alene. Yeah, it might be enough to appease them for a short period of time. Let's be honest about this, right? But $50,000 to $70,000 worth of pills would be a whole lot of fucking pills. A whole lot of pills, right? A small shopping bag full of pills. It'd be a whole lot of pills. It wouldn't be just a couple of handfuls, thousands of pills, right? Because even if you pay $1 a fucking piece, that's 50,000 pills. You know how much 50,000 pills were? If the pills were $5 a piece, it's 25,000 pills minimum, based on the numbers that you're throwing out there, Nomi. So, it's still possible. Yeah. It's still possible. And it's possible you could flush that many pills. But I'm going to be very honest with you. You put them down a handful at a time, right? But I don't know that Maddie would have done that. I don't know that Maddie would have done that to just think about this for a second. Would Maddie have done that to Kaylee? No. And here's now where some of this stuff makes sense in the context of where I think, based on the data, and now with this new data, I still don't exclude the involvement of the survivors in some context, some way, shape, or form. Allegedly, right? I guess I got to start using those fucking terms because YouTube wants to control what I say. I don't monetize. You guys know that, right? I don't monetize because I want as much latitude in what I'm going to say as I want, and I don't need their fucking money. You can't pay me 10 cents a fucking click. Fuck you, man. Anyway, sorry for running off the fucking deep end. Listen, I to be very honest with you, I honestly think that I think the drugs really is a second or third on the list to this crime. I think that there's got to be something else going on here. I think that I think YouTube is a fantastic service, but I think the problem with YouTube is that these leftist mindless nut jobs want to control what you can say. You got to unalive somebody. I can't even fathom how that can even be a fucking statement. I can't even believe I was able to say that like I just did. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. It's like giving people a fucking trophy because they showed up instead of because they won. That mentality don't wash with me. I think there's definitely an aspect of jealousy and rage in the posing of the bodies. I also think that that the people that may have had that are not the people that did the killing. I honestly am not. I don't know how you guys. I don't know how you were brought up or how you lived or anything, but I was part of a group of guys, and some of you may remember this when you were young and doing crazy stuff, or maybe now that you're older. How about people in the workplace? If there's someone in the workplace that's well liked, or respected, or envied, or whatever it might be, isn't there always somebody that steps up first and takes action? Isn't there somebody in your group that's that way? Right? I can't tell you how many fist fights I got into. How many times I jumped into a fight that had nothing to do with me because it was an outsized and outmatched fight. And there was no fairness to it. You had the wimpiest, shyest little dude in school, and then some guy 6'2" is going to beat him up. No, I'm not going to stand by and watch that. You're going to beat him up because he's that much different than the rest of us? No. Did he steal from you? Did he get your sister pregnant and run off? I mean, did he do something worth an ass kicking? Or are you just going to kick his ass because, I said this the other night, folks, that there's a potential for Kohlberger to have been involved in a multitude of different ways, that being one of them. And I say that that's a possibility because of that questionnaire he put out. That questionnaire he put out and his interest in what people said in jail. He wanted to know everything about what you're doing, what you're thinking, blah, blah, blah. And he was hard to talk to. Never talked about himself. Brian Kohlberger had a quirk about him, folks. And if you want to be fair-minded about it, start adding up some of these quirks. That wasn't his question. It may not have been his questionnaire. It's got nothing to do with it. He took the questionnaire and published it and asked for people to respond. Regardless of his, and I know he has autism, so do I. I have Asperger's. And I'm also an asshole. So, I get it. Listen, I'm saying it's just possible that his involvement can include something different. That his involvement can include the curiosity to understand how criminals act. That questionnaire may be a part of why he was tied to this. Not because he set out to do that, but because maybe someone that answered that questionnaire somehow, some way, led him down that path. But I don't know that that's true no more than I know if he's guilty, because he said he was guilty. Right? I think Ann did a horrible job. I said that in the beginning. Right? Yeah, Tommy ought to come back and tell people. So, yeah, well, you saw him when, I'm going to tell you, folks, look at it. You're hearing me over this stupid microphone. In person, I am definitely a different kind of quirky person in person. Now, if I go and I meet strange people, for instance, if I go to my dentist, they all love me there, and I don't have any problem interacting with the women and the men there. but we have a shared interest for this interaction. When I just meet people cold, I don't know what the fuck to do. I just don't. It's uncomfortable. It's weird. I probably could have got laid 50 times in my life if that wasn't a problem. Not to say I didn't have enough or get enough, but there is things that you really can't get from someone like you're hearing me talk over the air like this. Right. They can't play. So I'm not saying they can. Here's what I said in the very beginning. Dago and all these other guys will tell you this. I really think it's insane for you not to understand that Brian Koberger could have got south, parked his car, got into another fucking car, and drove back to Moscow, leaving his phone and his car down there. I mean, that's one way. There's so many different ways he could have been a part of this crime. It's not even. There's more ways he could have been, and there's only one way he couldn't have been, and that's based on facts released thus far in this case. That's the only way I can see he had nothing to do with it, because everything that they've put forward is exculpatory. And this is why I had a problem with this case from the beginning. When you tell a judge in writing that you cannot place his car at or near that residence, okay, from 2:54 until 4:48 a.m., then that's exculpatory. You can't place him there. Everything you now say from this point forward is your guess. It's your theory. It's your assumption. And the freedom of an American citizen shouldn't depend on fucking assumptions of a cop. Well, we know criminals turn their phone off, but Brian Koberger is not a criminal at all. He's a PhD fucking student and a teacher's assistant at a decent college. You can't apply the behavior of a fucking criminal to some guy that you can't even tell me where he was during the time of the crime. And just because you see a vehicle circling those areas, well, didn't we have DoorDash person have the same fucking problem trying to find a house over there to deliver food? So she says. She couldn't find the house. And so that immediately excludes another exculpatory piece of information. Completely excludes Brian Koberger. The fucking DoorDash driver couldn't find the house, according to their own words, right? That's another piece of so there. The car is a red herring. The car is not part of the crime. There's nothing that you can do to and when they arrested him, which they should never have been given the fucking application. The judge should never have signed off on that. Nothing in that application for arrest. Nothing gave the likelihood that Mr. Koberger was in that home. The fact that they had transferred DNA should have been ignored unless you had evidence that could place him at that residence, and you can't do that. You cannot identify that car as a car he owns. It looks like his. Yeah, well, two black people look alike too, God bless it. So what do I do? Just arrest every black guy because a black guy committed a crime? Haven't we fucking grown out of that yet? Now all of a sudden it's white cars, all white cars now resemble Brian's at night in the dark on a fucking infrared camera. What the fuck? I would have had a heyday with this in court. They'd have had to incarcerate me for contempt of court. I'd have been all over that Bill Thompson. By the time I was done with Bill Thompson, that fucker would look like the reindeer, not Santa Claus himself. That motherfucker would have looked like the sled that Santa Claus drives around in, not Santa Claus himself. Okay? This whole case was built on a stack of fucking bullshit. None of it verifiable. All of it a theory. And then you got those people they refer to as guilters out here. They're not guilty. They're leftist. They're leftists that have been trained and educated and conditioned that whatever you're told is true. And these people will go with that because it'll contradict decent, honest fucking people that try to think. And the leftists don't want to think. The leftist just takes what's given to him. Oh, he did it. Okay, he did it. Well, and they got an excuse for every fucking thing. Well, there was blood on Dylan's jaw. Yeah, but they only said they found Dylan's blood on Dylan's jacket. Really? Huh. It was inconclusive on the rest of it. How much of it did they really test? Oh, man, it drives me crazy how the world has been conditioned to just be, yes, sir, no, sir. Oh, yeah. No, listen, you didn't land on the moon. The earth is flat. The Bigfoot is real. UFOs. The Air Force just recently released information showing that Tic Tac is a craft that they actually built. Unbelievable, man. How many of us have been fucking conditioned to be just stupid, right? Kamala Harris, she's appointed to be the fucking border czar. And then all of a sudden, no, I was never the border czar. I had nothing to do with the border. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. What do you mean it wasn't you? There was a big press conference assigning you to be the border czar. No, I don't remember that. Unfucking unbelievable. I think Dylan might have been the girl selling feet pics. I don't know. Not that it matters to me. I mean, people are people. But where was I? I got lost. See, that's what happens. I get into these rants. Maybe I shouldn't get into these rants. I might get better viewership, but god damn. This guy, whether he did it or not, the whole proceeding, the whole process, the exculpatory evidence that was withheld from the public, the only thing released to the public was interpreted under the framework of he did it. Now we know the footprint coming out of Dylan's room. The shoe that made that footprint was found in that house. Unbelievable. Yeah, I honestly think at this point that Ann Taylor was like tits on a bull, right? Ann Taylor is no good. Ann Taylor folded. Once she got her next murder case, she folded. That's a big deal as far as I can see. Hey, it says no, mom, only for the summer. So where was I on a few of these? I took some notes, man. The subclavian artery, I think that the understanding of that and the impact of that kind of vicious attack in that area on three fucking individuals at the same crime scene tells a story. A story that I don't think Brian Kohlberger could have done. I couldn't do it. I'll be very honest with you. I'm not sure that I could do that, but maybe. Let's see here. What? It's terrible when you can't read your own handwriting. I think if I'm autistic, it's in handwriting. Yeah, well, yeah, you could imagine sitting in prison for something you didn't do if the only alternative was death. You could imagine sitting in prison and pleading guilty if your counsel was giving you that advice. Ann Taylor's going to scream up and down he made that decision all by himself, and that may be true, right? That might be absolutely true. But how many times have you got your kid to do something because it was the only fucking choice the kid had, right? You need to get up there and clean your room, and I'm going to give you an ass whooping. Or I'm going to ground you for 2 weeks. I'm going to take away all your electronics. You're not going to have your phone, right? I mean, I know we're talking about adults, but you never really stop being a child. Imagine being locked in a jail cell for a couple of years. And every piece of news you get from your lawyers, motion denied, motion denied, motion denied. And then you hear what's his name there? And I like that guy Turvey. Regardless if he's a quack or not, he said a couple of things that just made me smile. Never believe anything. The facts tell a story. That's the only thing that matters. And they can only tell a story like he's telling you. When people do things and they do something like you see in this crime scene, they're telling you who they are. And what they're telling you excludes Brian Kohlberger. And it excludes Brian Kohlberger because the police themselves provided unquestionable fucking information that separates Kohlberger from that house, from that location, and from all of the people involved. Right? Kohlberger didn't have to say my car wasn't involved. The police proved that when they tore it apart. Kohlberger said I didn't have anything to do with it, and they verified that by tearing everything apart that he'd ever been in contact with, finding no connection to the crime scene. Then they further showed that he had nothing to do with the crime when they couldn't find anything electronic, and they argued he deleted it only to tell us that was a lie. Kohlberger never deleted any information, forensically or otherwise, to hide what he was doing. Kohlberger may have used firewalls. I do too. But that doesn't mean I'm hiding from criminals or trying to commit crimes and keep a secret of it. So here's what I'm saying is every single thing the police did was exculpatory to Brian. When I first got into this crazy true crime nonsense, I made that point right from day one. There's nothing in the probable cause affidavit that is not exculpatory. Nothing is inculpatory. Inculpatory evidence is required to remove an American from his freedom. Meaning, for example, if a corner store is robbed, right, and two people see the commotion and look over. Oh, I'll give you a simpler one because this happened to me in my life. A policeman tells me I'd like to come by and you own a blue car. I go, yeah. He said, well, I'd like to come by and look at the car. I go, sure. He goes, what's the license plate? And I got a snarky name for a license plate. I'm like, how could Sarge not have a fucked up name on a license plate? It's like a dig to other people, right? That are in the car. So I tell him my plate. He goes, huh. I go, well, what's he goes, I don't. I got a partial plate, but I don't know if it's got anything to do with yours. I said, well, what do you want to see my car for? What happened? He said, well, you were at so and so market earlier in the day playing bumper cars with the parked vehicles in the parking lot. I go, really? He goes, yeah, I've got two witnesses here. And the plate number they gave me corresponds to your vehicle. Huh. I said, well, my plate has been changed. I actually have that license plate. Now I live in New York. And in New York, when you change, like I can get custom plates, but you get to keep the plates that you take off and replace them with. Right? I don't know what you're supposed to do with them. They don't want them back. So you destroy them or you hang them on your garage wall like I did. Anyway, the plate number that they claimed was me at one time. It was my plate, in other words, right? I said, well, I've got those license plates in my garage attached to the wall and a different set of plates on the car. It's been on the car now for 8-10 months. But come on over. I said, and also just be aware that my car is a Corvette. It's made of fiberglass. So if I was playing bumper cars in that grocery store's parking lot, obviously there's chunks of fiberglass all over the place. And he got quiet for a second. He goes, no, not at all. I go, well, how hard was the damage? He goes, some pretty hard, crashes into other cars. I said, well, you're welcome to come over. I said, but you're wasting your time. I have a Corvette. That was my old license plate number. Maybe they got a number, digit, or letter out of order, and my vehicle is blue. He goes, no, there's no way your car could have done that. Your car's not smashed. I said, I'll send you a picture of it. He goes, no, I don't even need a picture. He goes, we got the license plate wrong. Color right, wrong plate. I said, okay, thank you. Never heard about it again. See, you have to have some. In other words, that's what they should have done with Brian Koberger's information. When they were putting together the route of what they thought a vehicle involved in that crime, they can't even prove any vehicle was part of this crime. That's the other thing, too, that's so important to know. That's exculpatory. Yet Judge Hippler stuck it up Koberger's ass when she wanted to argue alternative suspects, and he said, well, they don't have a white car. The idea that the white car is part of that crime is ludicrous in my mind. It just doesn't make any sense. For many reasons that I'm not going to get into. But the most important reason that you can't connect the white car to that crime, the most important reason, is that you've already searched that car, A. But more importantly, even before you got to the search, there's no evidence that anybody in that vehicle got out of that vehicle and entered that home. There's no evidence of that at all. There's no eyes on anything of that car it drove here, drove there. Could be the same car. Could be 3 different cars. Right? Could even be the same car. Could even be a 2014, 2015, 2016. Could even be an Elantra those years. Yep, great. But there's no evidence of that vehicle parking, anybody getting out of that car and going into the house. So that's more exculpatory evidence. You can't even include the car. The car is a red herring. Doesn't belong in the accusation. That probable cause affidavit is full of conclusions not supported by any evidence. And that is not how our justice system is supposed to work. The evidence first, the arrest second. Not the guess, not the theory, not the maybe, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Okay? Evidence. Connecting that vehicle to Mr. Koberger. You can't connect that vehicle to Mr. Koberger. It's just another white car similar to Mr. Koberger's. Doesn't make Koberger suspect vehicle 1. Suspect vehicle 1 is still on that fucking camera. And until you identify that exact vehicle and confirm that camera and the image of the vehicle that you have are exactly the same vehicle, then you need to go away. And the fact that Brian Koberger was in the car, that's another thing that you need to show. Suspect vehicle 1. Do you have any images of the driver? No. Any unique markings on the car, bumper stickers, parking sticker, dents, anything? No. Well, all right. Well, then that could just be anybody's white car. Huh. I just find the whole case mind fucking boggling. So a couple of things, if you guys get the chance, because you'll see me here and there, is what happened to the $6,500 that Kaylee kept when she sold her car that very day? Where did that money go? Is it explained in any of the documentation from the police? Is it even brought up? Because that really became an issue for me when I was listening to Whitcomb. That's A. The next one is the footprint in the tub. Is that a real picture that Metal Mayhem is sharing? And I'm not trying to say he did anything wrong, but is that a verifiable photograph from the crime scene? That would be important. And that again, that impugns the residents of the house. The coat, the bracelet, the bathroom scoured like that, the cleanup on all the floors on the second area of the home. That impugns the people that were in the house, because although you may be able to stab me in the subclavian artery and sever the nerves that give me control of my voice box, I give you that could have happened. That absolutely could have happened. That could absolutely explain why Dylan, 8 feet below the crime scene, didn't hear the struggle of these women. Okay, or at least if what she heard may not even have been interpreted as a struggle. All right. That does have a plausible. Now there's a plausible explanation, and of all people coming from me to say that, believe me, I was the first one, and I just couldn't sit still with that 8-hour delay and with the nonsense that was written down. There's nothing. There's too many things that suggest knowledge and or involvement. Right? I mean, images of eyes, and that ends up being part of the PCA, the bushy eyebrows. Well, that's nonsense. And then images in her room that show similar cuts or similar appearances, and whatever the images were drawn of the two girls upstairs, shoulders and their neck cuts. That's just crazy. The footprint that appears to me to be coming out of her room. It's just crazy. Doesn't make sense. How does that add up? You didn't know anything was happening. And here's the other thing. This is another thing that just drives me. Just common sense. There's no common sense. No, I don't think that is. Where did he watch that? I don't think Brian wittingly allowed for all of this, or he would have pled guilty. Right. So I don't know. I gotta just pay a little more attention to the chat. Somebody said something. So who said it? Senior. Where is it? What did Senior say? I missed it. Somebody copy and paste. There it is. So what do we have? I was going to say. I know personally that lawyers work within a closed loop. And I suspect, folks, just so you know, that every community, as Mr. Turvey pointed out, is its own fiefdom. And that within that fiefdom are all the fucking horses and all the king's men. And those include the public defender. And I suspect that the public defenders have pressure put on them. And that pressure is to bring this case to a conclusion and move on to the next one. It's a numbers game. And that's where our judicial system is flawed in ways that it's just unimaginable. Did Brian Koberger have anything to do with this crime? I can't answer that question. But I think when you start to assemble the facts and try to let the facts tell you something, they will speak. They will tell you something. The girls were put in a pose, hugging, Somebody knew that these two girls were intimate friends. And when I mean intimate, I don't mean sex. They were deeply, intimately involved with one another for years. And I'm not trying to be, like it was a romance. They were lifelong friends. And for people that age, that was incredible. And I'm sure I never heard him say that he was guilty either. So what is Senior claiming? I don't. Can somebody post what he's claimed so I can understand what you guys are talking about in the chat room? I feel like I'm not part of my own stream when I look at Jalea's story talking back to Senior. I didn't see what he said. I never heard Sai say that he did it either, but I think Sai said that absolutely what you said, that they could have looked at that information another way and made more sense of his potential to be at that crime scene. Right? Can't you find it and just copy and paste what Senior said? I just can't get past a few things that don't seem anything more than they just don't fit anything but a narrative that seems to be coalesce on that evening where that crime took place. And is Brian part of that? Is Brian an unknown part? Maybe you can't copy and paste. Senior, can you say what it is you were saying that I missed? How far back was it? It's hard to find stuff in here. How far back was it that he said what he said? Anybody know? I can't even find him in here from the beginning of the stream. Oh, there's right. Leah, Twiz, Leah, Nomi, Leah. Becky, where the hell is he? Yeah, I can't even find him. My eyes are getting blurry. Senior, I've never heard of the title being in someone else's name. Yeah, that was in the original owner's name. What else did Senior say? Somewhere after that, I suspect. This is a pain right in it. Yeah, Senior, are you able to repeat what it is you guys are talking about? I never heard Sai said BK. I don't know. Up above where Twiz last commented. Hell, the Twiz last comment. Brian had his report in his apartment laying out the numbers of false conversations and forced plea deals and sat in court watching his report played out in real life. Yeah, I don't know. Where did you get that from, Senior? Where's the support to what you're saying? Right? Yeah, I see what he's saying, but I don't know. I want to know why Brian had his report in his apartment. Yeah, I don't know. I got that. I see it. I found it, and I also saw it. But where's the evidence that that happened? Batch two of the ISP photos. All right. I have to look that up. If you got any way of getting that, that would be awesome. Batch two ISP photos. I haven't collected any of the photos from what's been released. I've been watching what other people have been saying. Yeah, but there's another crazy thing that doesn't lend any favors to Brian Kohlberger. I don't remember hearing that. I and so when I don't know. You mean he had his report in his apartment laying out the numbers of false? Huh. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Was it a school project? That's kind of fucked up if that's true, right? And then it played out in real life for him. Yeah, that's another coincidence that's just hard. It was a report that he made out. Yeah, can you imagine how that stuff came to life in his own life? How crazy is that? Yeah, I guess that's an insane. If that being accurate, I mean, you're calling that released batch two of the ISP photos. Let me see here if I can get that. Stop with that. Don't do that, stupid machine. Batch two ISP photos. He's saying, hang on. Can I get? I want to do that. I just want. All right, hang on. Five ISP photos, batch two. So, oh, senior, there it is. You actually got a channel. Where in your? It's a 3 hour fucking video. Senior, there it is. Stream there. No, I think so. Where in your stream? You got a 3 hour stream. Do you show it there in that stream? There it is. Yeah, that's a hefty piece of info. I don't, not for me to tell you what to do, but it's kind of interesting. Res- Um, research topics. To read through, I would have to read through that. Senior, 1 hour and 9 minutes. It shows it. That's what he's saying. I scoop. You know what? That's funny. It's so funny you say that because that's exactly what I ended up scrolling to. Was 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 28 seconds there. And now I want to go back 108:53. And where? Yeah, folks. Here, I'll give you a link. We will link. We'll link his stream, and you can all look at 1.09.00. Oh man, I think I screwed up the link. Stupid machine. Stupid user. Come on, I said post. There is the link, and the time is 1.09.00. Boom. That's the timestamp you're looking for. 109. 109. 1 hour and 9 minutes. All right. Well, that's awesome, man. See that? There's information that I've never seen, never heard, no one's ever talked about. Gotta love it, man. No, thank you very much. I'm gonna bookmark so I can walk through see that for tomorrow. Look at that. Yes. Live ISP. Um, and here's something else too. I want to just so that you guys know. I asked the question: did all victims receive a subclavian artery wound? Not all victims. Um, Ethan did. Kaylee did. Madison did. Zana died from multiple sharp force injuries to her lungs and heart. Her autopsy report did not specify a subclavian artery wound, as she primarily endured over 50 stab wounds, including severe defensive wounds. And that's according to the autopsy report from unsealed documents. Chapin, conclaves, Mogan all had the subclavian artery, subclavian vein, subclavian artery. Wound performed as jugular vein, subclavian vein, and subclavian artery. Whoever wielded that knife they had a target in mind. That knife didn't just accidentally go where it went. But let me just say now, let me get back to something that I was saying earlier, because I am not one of them people that believe Koberger did it or didn't do it. I don't know. But I do believe information that can be verified. And what I was saying earlier, that um 6,500 in the Range Rover with a check? No, I believe it was cash. It was 6,500 cash that she was paid for that car. That's what Whitcomb had said. And she was keeping the money. So that's my understanding of it. And to go on further, the more I make that understanding is because later it said she bought friends drinks. She wasn't worried about money, it appeared to her friends. So yeah, that's awesome. Why would he have left that in his apartment when he was traveling across the country? I mean, that's kind of a weird thing there, Senor, to find in your apartment. That's where you're saying this came from, right? It was in Brian Koberger's apartment. And we're gonna have to I'm gonna have to play that. That check from Cali was out of the Chevy Cruze, not the Range Rover. No, I don't know if it was. See, here's the thing. Nobody really discussed what happened to that money. Nobody really paid any attention to the fact that she was in possession of that money. But Chris Whitcomb brought that up. So it was new to me. And that's why I'm putting it out here. Because people should get an understanding of that. It may not have anything at all to do with the crime. Right? But even the police didn't talk about that. And as much as telling us where the money was, it was found on her. She had deposited in the bank, blah, 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 blah. There's no really end story to what happened to the 6,500 cash for that car. And that should be part of this case, right? Because they say there was no burglary involved, there was no robbery, there was no sexual, um, you know. So I don't know if that money come up missing. Well, that would be robbery. Could that be a motive for this crime? Yeah, but yeah, I mean, not even but the answer is yeah, that could have been a motive for that crime, right? Totally, 100% could have been a motive. Who knew she had it? Had to be people in her close circle, right? Maybe the cops took it. I don't know. But my understanding from Chris Whitcomb is, and he didn't really get that deep into it, but the way he discussed this particular topic was, she told her dad she's keeping the money, not the check, but the money. Now, that could also mean a check, right? But generally, when you sell your car to somebody, you're going to get cash, 6,500 cash. It's not an unreasonable amount to be paid in cash. And if you're going to get a check, you're not going to sign the car over to him just on a check that somebody gave you. I mean, I didn't just fall out of the tree yesterday. I fell out of it this morning. So, I wouldn't take your personal check and sign my car over to you. You got to be out of your goddamn hat. Yeah. Yeah, Senior, I'm going to look at that tomorrow, and that'll be an interesting angle. Like some of the stuff I'm pointing out tonight, the strikes, the kind of wounds, where they were targeted, the money, all of that isn't playing into Koberger's innocent. It's raising questions. It may be spreading the terrain around. There may be more area to look now, but I think photo 450. Oh, that was in Brian Koberger's apartment, huh? I'm going to see if I can't get that blown up enough so that I can actually read it. In the meantime, folks, I'm going to call it a night. I've been on here 84 minutes. It's how funny how 20, 30 minutes turns into an hour and a half. You wouldn't give us your car, Sarge. No, I ain't giving you my car. I'm going to send you the Google Drive file, Sarge. Okay. He also had the book titled Why the Innocent Plead Guilty and the Guilty Go Free and Other Paradoxes of Our Broken Legal System by Jed S. Ramos. Yeah, man, what a coincidence, right? And it happened to him. Unbelievable. Well, not that it happened to him, potentially, because he may be guilty. But you know, folks, I'm not a guy that thinks he's guilty or innocent. But these new pieces of information that have been brought up tonight and here, especially with what seniors saying, um, it does give a look. It does give a look at Koberger in a potentially incriminating way. And I'm not really against seeing him as the perpetrator of this crime or part of this crime, whether it be one or more. Apparently, there was more, but that's why I say if there was more, and that's why I brought up Kopaka. Then for some strange reason, all of these things coalesce around this particular case. It says something, whether we want to accept it or not. It really says something that he happens to be there in Washington, right? That he did this thing in Pennsylvania. If I'm not mistaken, Kopaka lives in Pennsylvania too. Then you got this thing on Reddit, and then you've got this crime scene that couldn't have been done by one person. If it was done by two people, three people, could Brian have been an onlooker? Could his only fucking part of this crime being an onlooker? Maybe that makes as much sense as everything else they've been telling us. It's a potential thing to ponder. Let me see what we got here for an email. Email. Got it. I will not say your name, Mr. C. There you go. So, Idaho4 Medium. Last edited a month ago. I'll check that out tomorrow, Mr. C. I definitely appreciate that. Nothing in the first 50 MPD reports about the Range Rover. What is Twiz asking? How is a book incriminating? I don't know. Required reading for his studies. Yeah, that may be true, but I'm sorry that how many coincidences can this kid be surrounded with, right? And this is the same question we ask about Dylan, we ask about Bethany, we ask about all of these people, the boyfriend. How many coincidences before they're not coincidences anymore, right? And there's been a lot of things that support non-involvement, but it's interesting to see that these other kind of things that don't get a lot of attention because we're not putting our mind to it, and it may have been required, but I mean, how are all these required things so consistent with this particular incident, right? I mean, come on now, that's kind of crazy. What did Senior say? You got a good laugh. Yeah, I'll be talking to you guys again. In the meantime, he said something else. Everyone answers Wazowski. Wazowski. I don't know how to say your name. Everybody be good. If you're going to get in trouble, don't get caught. If you get caught, don't use a fucking public defender. You're better off using a law library and your own wits. You got better chance at winning a case, even if you committed the crime, than if you hire a public defender. Yeah, he could have gotten to the house a different way. I said that in the very beginning, but that's not the point. They don't have any evidence of that either. They got as much evidence of him coming in a different way than they got evidence that that's his car. It's all a theory. It's all a guess. It's all, oh, look, we got his transfer DNA. Again, do I got that pace? Can I do that? I can't tell you enough. Go watch this PBS and where's his live stream? I closed the window. But yeah, cool beans. We'll have to meet up and talk one time here, Senior Wazowski Junior. Yeah, watch that PBS thing on DNA. Good night, everybody. Thanks for stopping in. And see you.